Call the Development Committee meeting to order at about 5:39. Kathy, would you go ahead and take the roll, please?
Carter,
Here.
Hicken,
Here.
Walter,
Here.
And we stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. King sent me a text and said he's probably going to be a little bit late.
He's in the building. He'll be here in any minute.
Oh, cool. Okay. All right. So
Elvis is in the
go ahead and, Scott, if you want to go ahead and give us an update where we left off last time.
Last time we had discussion in terms of food trucks, naked item foods, and accessory buildings. All of those, it's in my council report, those are all moving through the amendment process at this time.
Okay.
The first item on our agenda is the update of the subdivision regulations, so that has been attached. Again, yellow still needs to be worked on, but it's provide some general updates of things that have been added since they were last distributed to the development.
Okay. And what timeline were we looking at for this again?
I believe end of the year.
Can I put added?
I guess I have a quick question. To refresh my memory, the yellow is not what the yellow is yet to be touched. Is that correct?
It still needs to be addressed. Sometimes throughout this process, you'll work through a portion, things done, it becomes unyellow, you continue to work and hash through these things, and something changes down here, which may make it
Okay.
yellow. So it's not that it hasn't been touched, it just needs to be finalized.
Any questions?
Are you looking for comments from us, or?
It's just a general update at this point, because how we're going through it would be, we go through, get the yellow gone, and then we sit down and go through and attempt to poke holes in it one last time. See what we can come up with, make sure we have all our bases covered, do the game of what if, and then see if, there's loopholes or unintended consequences of anything that's been written. And then once we have that finalized, we bring it back for development committee, once we feel it's in a solid draft form, for comments from development committee. But if you have comments while we're here, feel free.
Be great to share.
Well, just taking a quick look under 111306, under your preliminary plan comments, N and O. You got one that says the location and width of sidewalks and paths and the spacing of street lighting. That's to be included, right? Then the next one down says location of all street lights.
Yes, and that was something that we put that in, and then we pulled the streetlight one out, which is why it's yellow, thinking, why don't we assign this its own letter and then make it,
So-
scribe provisions for installing the
So
streetlight.
N, I should say, is location and width of all sidewalks and paths, period. Strike out the spacing of street lighting.
Correct.
O is its own,
Yes.
and to be final location determined by engineering, by lighting engineer. That's how,
We were looking for some set parameters.
Okay.
And
Okay.
determine how and where those would be installed, but we wanted to get it in there that as we work through this, it's yellow, we have some basic parameters by which we would go by. At this point.
I got you.
Jog our memory again.
Okay, yeah, I definitely like to go through it and maybe give you some comments on it.
Okay.
Me as well. Thank you.
Okay. You have the Smart Growth Initiative listed.
Yes, the next thing, and this is the reason that I've invited Nate and Alan, is as we continue to go through the process of updating the subdivision regulations, updating, general regulations, comprehensive plan, that we're still battling the amount of growth that the city is facing. So we're doing these concurrently. And the thought would be at this point, is it responsible to continue with this new development when we realize the provisions in place, plans, infrastructure, things of that nature are not in place to adequately address this full development? So, it's our thought, and through our discussions, and I don't want to speak for Alan or Nate, but through our discussions, it was determined kind of like this process really isn't sustainable, and to continue to do it and try and balance both these things at the same time and hope we get caught up enough without things falling through the cracks, and then, that subdivision's built, and you don't want to go back in 10 years, 5 years and say, you know what, I wish we would have done this, or I wish we would have done that. So the thought would be, and it's just a placeholder name at this point, Smart Growth Initiative, Responsible Development, it's just a placeholder name. But the thought would be that we don't accept new residential subdivisions for a period of so long. So if it's a farm field across the street and someone wants to come and develop, we would say we're not accepting those. On the other side, subdivisions that have been through the process and have been approved with preliminary plan or final plan, those will still be honored. So it's not shutting off development completely. It would just be honoring those that are already in the process or have been in the process. And we have several that developers are coming in and, taking off the shelf and updating them and going through the process and are, currently building houses or are set up to building houses at this time. And period, whatever that time is, during that time, we would dedicate ourselves to comprehensive planning, updating subdivision regulations, updating the general regulations of development. As part of our comprehensive plan, we could look at a utility plan, we could look at transportation plans. Some of those things that would put us all on the same page, because as we proceed forward, we all know where we want to be. Instead of this is coming in, we look at it, we address a subdivision based upon what we know now, and not to say hope for the best, but we're not all on the same page where we should be. The things in place to be responsible, unfortunately, I don't think are there at this time. So it's just a conversation at this time to see kind of what development committee thinks.
BJ?
If I could, just a couple comments. Apologize. We're certainly growing. We got to do it responsibly. Houses also equal traffic, also equal demand on services, water, sewer, police. We learned today, and they're not here, but learned today at a meeting that the Southwest Licking Water and Sewer District is looking at 1,000 houses in the foreseeable future coming online. This area is growing tremendously. It's growing crazily, and we got to do it right. I think it's okay to take a step back and say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get it right for the foreseeable future? We don't want any of our services, whether it's police, water, sewer, our partners, water and sewer, fire, police, getting overtaxed, schools, getting overtaxed, that it just can't support the growth. We're an attractive area now, no doubt about it. But stepping back and doing it right, does it become more attractive? Probably.
My question would be with that is, what time frame are we looking at? I mean, we would certainly have to have a timeline and set goals and stay on track for all of that. Have you guys discussed any of that?
It was thrown out maybe 2 years, but again, it's just approaching this to say, here's kind of a thought, what do we think?
Guys, the word for this is called moratorium, and there's no way I would ever support that. and I'll tell you why. And I'm going to just jump right into it. You know, we hired a planner last year. The reason was so we could get ahead of this stuff. The reason was so we could get this done. You know, we've got all kinds of development happening in western Licking County right now. We have to be able to support this growth. We have to be able to have these homes being built and designed. You'll miss the boat. I mean, the people that have these farm fields that want to develop them, this is an injustice to them. I mean, it's not their fault that our zoning code is terrible. It's not their fault that our utilities and zoning codes don't match. We need to step up. I mean, in my opinion, just my opinion, this is what we were looking at last year. And this is why we have a city planner on board. So we could get this stuff done and we could do it in the timeframes that we had talked about doing them. And, you know, I've been, you know, and I've got it in my notes again tonight to talk again about this steering committee. We've got to get this thing started. You know, and that goes for council getting that going and getting that steering committee going for the comprehensive plan. But the work that you're doing in subdivision regulations and the general regulations, you know, I fully understand your concern that we've got holes, but a moratorium for 2 years, I mean, that's what Pickerington did, and it almost killed Pickerington. I would be absolutely against it, 100%.
I guess my question would be, and I echo the concerns about, first of all, the idea of the comprehensive plan being the driver, being what we're looking at. It was your kind of throw a dart at a board, 2 years. Is that how long do you think it would take to tighten up the comprehensive plan? And once the comprehensive plan's in place, would that not be the time to, I mean, if we say the steering committee needs to be put together, I agree with that. To revisit that comprehensive plan and to make sure that we move forward with that. Would that, once that is in place, would that not be the time to, to lift the moratorium? Or what's the logic for taking it longer than that? Because I don't think it would take that long to do the comprehensive plan. So are there other factors that I'm missing? And I may be, so.
And that was kind of like you said, throwing it at the dartboard. That if we have the subdivision regulations, the comprehensive plan, we'll still be doing development plans throughout this, because at this point, I'd say there's 15 to 20 kind of either we're building houses or going through that, or we're having conversations with developers about lots of land throughout the city. So I'd say we're still going to be doing development plans. That'll be part of it as well. The thought was to do a reasonable amount of time to get those things done, and 2 years came up, could be less.
Alan?
For me, it's really a matter of time. Like Scott said, we've got roughly 15 or 20 some stage right now of either preliminary planning and review for engineering, development plan, or preliminary development construction. So for me, dealing with the construction side of that takes a good amount of my time. Of course, we have Brian right now doing most of our CA, but all those final decisions come back to me for how things need to be accomplished. The same with engineering review. Of course, we're doing all that, but I look at all of them as well to make sure, you know, there's always things that they miss and they don't have as much of a vested interest. So I'm always looking at those as well. So for me, like I said, it's a matter of time. I don't have staff that I can push that off onto besides those. So it's hard to keep up with all that, and that's driving a lot of my time out of the subdivision regulations and trying to get to the comprehensive plans. It's hard to keep up with everything we've got going on now. And Scott already mentioned the holes and regs, and that's really a challenge right now, trying to make sure we've got them out there doing the right thing, especially contractors who want to frankly cut corners every chance they get, to make sure I've got something on the books to try and cut those corners and try and do things wrong.
Go ahead, Andy.
Can I throw in
Oh, absolutely, please, yes.
why I'm interested in this. So part of this is figuring out, in my mind, that I'm throwing out, you know, where are we 5, 10, 15, 20? And you know, we've discussed in utility meetings and other meetings about service areas and where we're at, where Southwest is at. I'm interested in this from the idea so we can better plan for the future. So for example, let's use a recent situation. 32 condos want to go in southern service area. So we have to do a study to evaluate, can we take this on? In my mind, a comprehensive plan, we've already looked at this and already know some of the future or the updates required. Same thing, let me backtrack to last year. Because we thought we were going to get the Fannin and Eagle property, what was one of the projects I planned to accomplish this year was upgrading the booster station. That was thrown in our budget as, again, a reaction to saying, hey, there could be homes up there before we do this. So, since we're not doing that per se right now, there's no need. So, part of it is to figure out what are these pockets, where should we, as the city utility department, what is the potential growth aspect from there? So, I think it's not so much, we don't have the staff in-house to manage some of this for us, it's what is the direction that the elected body wants to see this go? Nobody wants to talk moratorium, that's a hate. Shutting you down and nothing's happening, but before we get to a point to where we're either not funding our needs as far as infrastructure improvements or stretching ourselves too thin, from my end, where's the goal? Where should we be?
So, Scott, were you down in Pickerington when they shut the faucet off?
No.
Okay, so when they did, they ended up with between 20 and 25 new subdivisions overnight, brought into the city overnight, before the moratorium went into effect. And you want to talk about an overloaded system that killed their systems, their utility systems. They had no chance. It was a disaster, an absolute disaster. And you talk to anybody down there, they will tell you that it went from really bad to extremely bad. And I'm just letting you know, because I lived it. I went through it. Nobody was happy. The homeowners weren't happy. The large residential landholders were not, or I should say farm holders were not happy. The developers weren't happy. The engineers weren't happy. Nobody was happy. So just before we get into talking about that, and I appreciate you guys bringing this up to the committee to talk about and discuss, is there other ideas that we could throw out there? And I'm even willing to say, is there some help that we can go get to augment this planning that we need to do for this, because it's going to get faster. It's not going to slow down. I mean, I know this for a fact that you will see more here, Johnstown, Alexandria. These are going to feel enormous development pressures, just because what's happening right now through not only our sites, but through what's happening up to the north in the corridor between Granville and Patask and New Albany. So, I mean, I'd be willing to look at other ideas first before shutting the spigot off. That's just my opinion.
If I may, I don't know that it would be shutting the spigot off, because the number of plans that we have out there that have some sort of formal approval, we would still honor. And all the developers, home builders currently operating within the city would still have multiple phases of build-out.
I fully understand that. I understand that. But
And that was our concern. We don't want to say we're shutting the door. But it's like all those that have been approved that are in the process will continue to take through. But just doing a farm field now of 300 new homes.
But Scott, my argument back to that is, you know how long it takes to take a farm field to being prepared to develop it for homes. It takes 18 months to get it right, to go through the process, to go through the funding, anything that you've got to do, the negotiations, whatever, and you're going to have a gap. There's going to be a gap, and it's going to transpire somewhere in the future that there isn't going to be development happening in Pataskla because of this timeout. We'll call it a timeout.
BJ, what do you want to say? I saw you with your hand up.
You guys
No?
keep
Okay.
talking and I'll weigh in at the end.
I think I'm teetering just with the thoughts I'm having. One, I want to say that I appreciate that we have an administration that would be willing to come to us and say, hey, we think that we need to take a step back and look at the big picture. Because I agree, I actually had this conversation with somebody earlier today that I'm concerned about the amount of things that are coming at us and how we throw things in. On the flip side of that, I don't know that we have that kind of time based on what's going on around us. I think it's going to move faster, obviously, than we're ready for, but so I don't know that we can step back for that amount of time. So we're talking just a moratorium on subdivision development?
New subdivision development. If you have new residential subdivision, if a strip mall wanted to come in across the street, that would be fine. It's just new residential subdivisions. All the subdivisions that have been approved somewhere along the line would still be honored.
Mr. Aiken?
So what? Let me go back to what seems to be kind of a limiting item, and I think, and tell me if I'm wrong. Is the lack of the comprehensive plan is that what is driving the problem? I mean, we have subdivision regulations. We've been working on those, and they look like they're getting pretty close to being something that I think people could hang their hats on. And as you continue to redefine them and poke holes in them, I think that's a good methodology for doing that. And I like how that works. If it is the comprehensive plan that is the limiting factor, is it possible to speed up the process by throwing more resources or time or whatever it happens to be at that comprehensive plan development?
Comprehensive plan is not the be-all and end-all. We got to look at what services we're providing from police. We hear all the time that police are understaffed to provide services. Every time a new residential subdivision comes in, we hear from the schools that they can't support it. We've heard, from Nate that our water system and sewer system is overtaxed. We've heard from the district today they're going to have 1,000 new homes coming in, so they're building a new water plant. It's not going to be online until fall of 18.
It was wastewater.
Or wastewater.
The new water plant's underway. They were talking wastewater today.
Wastewater. So, everything is overtaxed right now to try to figure out how to service this. So the comprehensive plan could certainly come into play and say, this is what we want this property to be. This is how we want to develop. This could be residential, but can we support that? What do we need to support? How do we support that? I know Nate goes through great pains trying to figure out how to support stuff. It's one of these things. What do we need to support it? And that's why I think this exercise would involve all of those people to figure out how we support this community to move forward and provide what we need instead of overtaxing it.
And I'm just going to throw out, I think what makes this complex is you as the city only have the control of water suppliers.
I would agree with that.
So from my standpoint, that elevates this into a round. What should we do? I'll use today's discussion as an example. We've got our borders, or we're working to expand it at another utility player in and around the area that has some. So instead of dropping the bomb on developers saying, hey, we need 10 acres or we need X amount of space for a new treatment plant, we should already have these things in the works where we can have these open discussions. So I'll use, for example, since I've worked here, except for this field across from our office has always been marketed for sale. I think somebody else bought it. So what happens tomorrow if they show up and say, we want to put 500 homes in? Do we kind of go through a neat action of, how do we make this work at the last minute? Hopefully we don't. Do we go ahead and do some research ahead of time from a utility standpoint? Is this something we want to do, and to what degree? And what is the cap? And knowing that our cap ultimately is driven behind the capacity that we have now. That's without upgrading facilities. Who's going to pay for that type of thing? So that's my kind of piece on the situation and how we can kind of work together. Because these three departments in the past year and a half, 2 years, are working closer together than ever before. To make sure that as things are going on in the zoning realm in a subdivision, we're all getting what the customer should get, whether it's a certain road spec or hydrant or whatever it is, to make sure there's a process that we're working together to make sure this is getting done correctly. Calls a year from now, why you have a manhole that's in my yard? So how do we move forward with that same type of idea? How do we look into the future 5 years? What does it look like zoning? I think that's at the heart for what I understand to be zoning. You guys can work and do your magic with that as things go on, but where do you want this to go? How should it look? I think is what I'm thinking.
Andy?
Just another point to make. We are looking for large companies to locate here in Pataskala. We're asking for them to bring their centers here, whatever they're going to do here, and that takes people. And if you've read any part of what's going on in the last 18 months, we're at a very low unemployment rate. These people, it's the cat, or it's the egg and the chicken. Which do you have first? If you don't have people here to work in these places, they won't come. So we're marketing for large businesses and large companies to come here to offset our income tax issues, and yet we're not going to provide them a workforce. I really don't see this being a win-win. It would be a very bad timing, in my opinion, extremely bad timing to tell them we're not doing subdivisions. We'll gladly take your business, your commercial or your manufacturing business, but we're not going to take your subdivisions. Can't do that. I'm going to go back to Tim's question about the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan is a guide. It is, and it's a guide that's in place now. Do we listen to it every time we turn around? I don't think we do. I think we don't. It's not binding in any way, shape, or form. It's an idea of what our community is going to look like, and it's a planning tool. And Scott, I think a couple years ago when we were talking about this and we were talking about going back through it, we had different options of how to update the comprehensive plan, and one of them was to get your involvement in it, get a steering committee, and kind of do it in-house, right? There's other options out there. There are consultants out there that you can pay. You can tell them what you want. They'll get it done under your direction and under council's approval. I guess I'm asking if we're looking at these options, I would hope we're looking at other options also to help us get to a final plan, or at least a plan that we can work with and sustain development.
Yeah, I certainly would say that I believe we have 18 months at least of subdivisions in the pipeline, different phases that will be getting built.
I'd say right now, it's probably, if we turned off the spigot, I'd say that would be about 400 lots still that would be permitted to be.
And if you look at 1,100 from the district, we're looking at 1,500 lots, residential lots that are going to be built within the workforce that
Why
could
are we-
get there.
Why are we taking the district into consideration?
The district.
They serve part of the city.
I understand, but we have no say on what the district does.
I agree.
You're talking about in the city served by the looking.
Not necessarily in the city, within driving distance of the corporate parks we're talking about. So, I mean, we're looking at 1,500 lots. I would love for council to approve hiring a consultant to do this, because it would certainly lessen the load and we'd be able to get it done much
My
better.
point is that I think that I would ask, let's have some options. Let's make sure we understand what that cost would be before if we go down this path and we have another option over here. Here's what a consultant. I'm not saying we should take the easy road or the hard road. I'm just saying that there should be at least a couple options.
I would like to take the best road.
Best road is a good choice.
Mr.
don't know
Ricken,
which
did
one
you
that
have
is at
something
this
to add?
No, I think in the end, one thing I have to add is, and BJ clarified it. It's that if Southwest Licking Sewer and Water says they're going to add 1,500 or 200 new ones, it doesn't necessarily, first of all, mean it's in the city.
Right.
I would also say that while I am extremely, I really appreciate the comments about we're asking companies to come here. I think if you look at the big companies that are in our proximity, that workforce is being fed, and it's not being fed by houses that were built in the city. I think we need, and that doesn't mean that it, I think if you look at Amazon is a classic example.
They're busing them in. They're
Well,
busing their workforce in
they're
because they're not
coming.
here.
They're coming from. Well, they're coming from wherever they come from. They're obviously working, and there's obviously people.
They're
there.
advertising they're advertising 50, 60, 70 miles away so they can get them here because they're not here. I mean, that's a great point. Anyhow,
No. No. The point there is that I don't necessarily tie. I think it's a good point. If you're going to ask a business to come here, and you're going then to just attempt to woo them, if that's the right term, attempt to sell them on the city. Hey, come on in here, and then in the next breath say, by the way, we're not going to let any more houses come in. That is a mixed message, and it's not a productive mixed message. I don't know that there's a direct correlation, though. Is all I was saying, is that sometimes, depending on where they're at, the workforce does tend to come in to where those jobs are.
Well, and I would like to see, I mean, if I were looking at that just as a resident, I would like to see that there would be maybe a middle ground, instead of a moratorium or, you know, a 2-year time period or 1 year, whatever it would be, to find a place that was comfortable for both. I'm in favor of looking into a consultant. I'm also, as a resident, I want to make sure that the subdivisions that go in, that the roads, we have the infrastructure to support it, that we're not making traffic problems worse than they already are in areas that aren't developing. You know, there's several intersections on the west side of town that, you know, the more subdivisions come in, but those intersections aren't getting any love, so they're only getting worse. We do have the issue with the schools, and both of our districts are bursting at the seams. And, you know, and every time they get bigger, they have to come back and ask the public for more money. So on the other side of that, we have all of these opportunities, and I've been saying for a year or more now, there's an avalanche waiting, and it's coming, and I believe it's here. So we can't miss out on the opportunity of what's coming here now. So I think we need to find a middle spot.
And I think that goes to the comment about options.
Certainly love to put together options, send it out to the committee, and with prices and everything, and how we can do this. And also with options, maybe not in, I won't say moratorium, because we got a lot of building going on. So I also think maybe looking at options of restrictions of number of lots permitted per year could potentially be one way to go about doing it.
Yep,
Well,
I was
we
just going to
should
say
have
there could be
some-
you could have a cap placed. So there's different things that could be done.
And
That could do it.
I think we should work with our community partners too. I think we need to look at, you know, the better.
We cannot do this alone, and we cannot have a quality community without talking to those who provide other services than the city provides to the community. We'd be foolish to do it any other way.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry to interrupt, but, we just had a CIC meeting today. The focus was on affordable housing, because along with when somebody comes to town and asks for acreage and water and electricity, number one is workforce. And, they're just not gonna be here if we don't have workforce. And so we're turning around as a CIC and starting to work with CTEC and COTC and everybody we possibly can to try and ramp up, because we know it is coming, and that's what they're asking for. And if we don't deliver.
This was a program that you saw 18 months ago in Chicago. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, they were doing it ahead then, and we need to continue to work with them to get the appropriate workforce here. But they have to live here. I mean, they have to live somewhere. And okay, that's exactly right, Mayor.
Thank you.
BJ, did you want to add something?
I'll just say, everybody's comments are spot on, and what it means is we need to have a well-planned community to make this happen. It's not going at it alone. It's not, how many houses, how many people do we want here to get as much. We need to do this well, and we need to do it right, because this is, whatever happens, it's going to be a long time. We talk about Broad Street. We've said this. You drive down Broad Street, it gets busy. How are we going to support the growth that is no doubt coming to us?
Can I ask a couple questions? Because Nate, I know you just did a large study for the water. I assume you're talking about sanitary constraints also.
Yes.
So part of the options are, what are the studies you want to do? Are there areas that you are comfortable in saying, yes, this area has plenty of capacity, this is a newer system. This over here is, though, an older system that we need to look at.
It certainly falls in line with what we talked about the last couple days, so.
So I guess that's what you're probably trying to say.
Yes. For me, given the infrastructure and equipment and facilities that we have, what is a proper customer growth rate?
Yeah.
And when do we need to look at other options? And the reason I say that is, like, we upgraded the wastewater plant because of past issues and have a $4+ million investment that you're paying on that might not necessarily get you to the point where our growth potential lies. So part of this is, what are the indicators as we go along to say, okay, yes on this, but hold up, because we would rather control it ourselves and say moratorium than the EPA saying, no, you can't have any more taxes.
That's essentially a moratorium in itself.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got target areas that you're going to want to expand in.
Yes.
So you could put that out for developers to understand that this is a target area for an expansion of the wastewater treatment facility, and if you participate in that, you get something from us.
Right.
So those are all things that we need to identify, and I think if we break it down, I don't know, it looks like a big project, a big problem, and
It's huge.
I understand that fully. But if we take it apart in pieces, it doesn't seem that hard to overcome, in my opinion.
BJ.
I think taking it apart in pieces is going to take a long time. I think we need to hit it head on, because, to try to say, hey, let's solve the water problem, that doesn't solve any of the other problems. Let's solve the sewer problem, doesn't solve any other problems. Let's solve the traffic, doesn't solve any other problems. So I think if we're going to do this, we need to really go at it, so we're not constantly tripping over and trying to figure out, okay, we got the water, we have a third reading tonight about a rezoning. And one of the concerns is water pressure. We know there's bottlenecks. We can't do this every time a development comes in.
Well,
We got to get it right.
I think there's a couple of things here, because when I look back, we've spent a couple of years building an administration that we trust, and that has been consistent and dedicated to the city. So when I have, when you guys come to us and bring these concerns, I take that very seriously, and I listen to your opinions, because you guys know better than me what we can handle. And we have the benefit of being in the middle of a number of cities and towns who've had this exact same issue and some have done it okay and some have done it really wrong. So we can learn from those examples as well. So as we sit and we look at the whole, we need to, identify those things and make sure that we take care of it for the residents that are already here. While we would love to have other people come here, we have people who already live here who want to stay comfortable. So look at it from that aspect and do it in a timely fashion. That would be my number one concern.
Just one more thing, and part of this is issues of the elected officials. With the, I look at least my position. So part of it is also, what is the pleasure? Would you rather see 1,000 new homes on your system, or would you rather see a big industrial? 1,000 homes have a different impact on your utility system industrial client would. Looking at those options, what should we focus on, and what are we prepared to do to lose 1,000 homes or an industrial client? That's where I'm at, trying to process, so it's just not my opinion moving.
One or the other.
Well, and I think that goes back to our community partners too. Certainly if you look at our other water provider here, there's only so much water right now. We've learned that the aquifer is not going to be real sustainable for 3 million gallons, 4 million gallons, 5 million gallons, whatever it may be per day. So we need to look and be, responsible when we're doing this stuff. So, we talk about excess capacity. If you had a big industrial client come in here at the corporate park. We're not at the corporate park. You know, we may have 750,000, 500,000 gallons capacity a day. They may need that. We may not be able to provide it. District may not be able to. So what do we do? Yeah. So I think it is a smart move to look at options, look at maybe limiting, look at consultants, look at whatever we can do, because, you know, we got a small staff, and to try to get all this done, it's coming quickly.
What I'd like
And
to
we've
see,
done well up to this point with it, but it's moving fast.
what I'd like to see is for the administration to bring some options to us and quickly, so we can look over them and even begin discussions. You know, putting some work together for the next development committee meeting, so we're not just going over preliminary plans, that we're actually getting into the meat of stuff, so we're moving it quickly.
What I'd like to do is the next week or two have proposals and information out to the development committee about the options.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to
I would
proceed.
agree with that.
Any more to add on that topic? Okay. Anything else on your agenda tonight?
No, ma'am.
You guys have anything else that you want to bring to them this evening,
Well,
real quick?
you know, I had a couple things, but I'm okay. I'll wait.
Okay. All right. Then I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Kathy? Carter? Yes.
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 Adjourn.